During a demonstration in Madrid's Puerta del Sol square, a gang of criminals prepares to launch their plan and breaks into a jewelry store, taking dozens of people prisoner. Among the thieves is a boy who is ordered to clean all the shelves, while the other gang members keep an eye on the security guards. When he discovers that Jose has brought his son to take part, Tony reprimands him, but the man reveals that he has to look after him at weekends and has no one to leave him with. At this point, Jose begins to suffer a crisis of conscience and tells his son that everything he is doing is to give him a better life. As he is still very young, Sergio just follows his father's orders, as he admires him too much to believe that what he is doing is wrong. Meanwhile, outside the store, another security guard approaches and is accosted by a guy in a SpongeBob costume. When he tries to react, the guard is attacked and ends up losing his life after being hit by numerous shots. As well as him, another woman becomes a victim of the gunfire, and on hearing the shooting, the police appear. After eliminating SpongeBob, the police run after the other members of the criminal group and an exchange of fire begins. While innocent people run scared, Jose and Tony flee along with Sergio and all the stolen goods. In an attempt to throw off the police, they break into a cab and threaten the driver to help them find an escape route. When he sees the cars approaching, Jose puts his body out of the window and starts shooting to try and slow them down, so that he can gain time to escape. Suddenly, Sergio receives a call from his mother and Sylvia panics when she hears the boy say that he is running away from the police with his father. To try and get around the situation, Jose picks up the phone and claims that the boy is joking, but Sylvia can't believe a word that comes out of her ex-husband's mouth. When the situation tightens up, the criminal hangs up the phone and orders the taxi driver to speed up. In doing so, they hit two cars and manage to get through unscathed. The plan now is to head for France and spend some time in Paris until the police give up looking for them. Meanwhile, Sylvia is in hospital, furious with her ex-husband because he won't answer his phone. The woman is a nurse, and for the last 3 months, she has borne all her son's expenses on her own, as Jose never has the money to pay alimony. Furious, she intends to send Jose to prison for not fulfilling his duties and says she won't rest until he's behind bars. The only gang members who managed to escape the police were Jose and Tony. The other members were taken to the police station for questioning and claim not to know the fugitives' real names, as they all used aliases to communicate. The team met in a pawn shop and decided to break into a jewelry store after finding out that the security system was very weak. After that, all they had to think about was a plan to break into the store without attracting too much attention, and during the escape, Sergio ended up forgetting his backpack with all his books on the counter. When they found the boy's belongings, the police saw his name and address. Right on the first page there is also contact information for Sergio's parents, and when Sylvia is told what has happened, she panics. From that moment on, she allies herself with the police to help them find Jose. But when she discovers that her son was also involved in the plan, she gets in the car and calls Sergio. However, the boy doesn't answer the call, and this makes her even more worried. While Sylvia tries to think of a way to rescue her son, Sergio is already about to cross the border, and Manuel, the driver, tries to convince the criminal not to eliminate him when they arrive in France. Using a spy app, Sylvia manages to track Jose's location after entering his information, so she decides to go after her ex-husband. While on the run, Jose hears a police car approaching and prepares to shoot, but to avoid a confrontation, Manuel turns the wheel and drives into the forest, hoping to throw off the police. Luckily, his plan went according to plan and the car ended up crashing into a tree. Meanwhile, the cab plunges down a ravine completely out of control, but when it reaches the road, the driver regains control of the vehicle. The only option now is to continue to the end of the road, and on the way the group sees two suspicious women laughing as they look at the vehicle. Despite finding the scene strange, the men decide to ignore it, and at dusk they find an isolated restaurant in the middle of the forest. Tired and hungry, they decide to stop and order 3 plates of soup. While waiting for his order, Manuel decides to go to the bathroom and hears human noises coming from downstairs as he looks into the hole where the toilet waste is disposed of. The man sees another guy looking up and starts shouting. After the scare, he leaves the bathroom and joins the rest of the group. At that moment, Sergio leaves the restaurant to take a look around and comes across a large number of creepy dolls. When he enters the mouth of one of the dolls, he finds a secret passage and ends up slipping. However, when he reaches the other side, he discovers that it's an ordinary slide and meets Enrique. When asked how to get to the border, Marichu reveals that a little further along the road, the outsiders will find the Zugarramurdi village. After climbing the hill, she says, they will reach the border and be able to leave the country, but Manuel refuses to go to that village because it is known to be inhabited by witches. When Manuel has finished eating his soup, He looks into the kitchen and sees the cook putting a human foot into the cauldron. At that moment, the man is paralyzed trying to process what he has seen, and Jose is approached by Enrique, who has gone there to take Sergio back to his father. Before saying goodbye, Enrique decides to give the outsiders a piece of advice and tells them never to contradict the witches and to say yes to everything they say. Upon hearing this, Marichu appears and orders her employee to return to the kitchen. After leaving the restaurant, the group gets into a cab and heads towards the village. However, with just 2 kilometers to go to Zugarramurdi, Manuel stops the vehicle and refuses to go any further, because he believes that the place is cursed. At this point, he decides to tell Manuel what happened when he went to the toilet, but Jose manages to convince him that what he saw was just a figment of his mind, as he is very tired. However, the rumors about the witches of Zugarramurdi still make him think, as Manuel has heard several stories of human sacrifices that took place in that village. Even after hearing this, Jose and Tony decide to drive on and force the driver to enter the village, as they are convinced that the story of the witches is nothing more than an urban legend. Just after starting the car and speeding off, Manuel accidentally runs over an elderly woman, and the whole team immediately goes out to check if she is still alive. When they turn the body over, Tony realizes that this is the old woman who served them at the restaurant, and at that moment, Manuel's suspicions are confirmed. He is convinced that Marichu is a witch, otherwise she would never have arrived in the village before them. When he sees a necklace full of pendants around the woman's neck, Jose decides to pick them up to see what they are, and Manuel tries to stop him from opening one of the jars. During the fight, they end up sprinkling powder in the air and start coughing, as they have choked on the substance. When he opens his eyes, the driver realizes that Marichu has disappeared, and Sergio says that she has flown away. Worried, everyone decides to get in the cab and make their way to the border to get out of Spain as quickly as possible. After crossing through the village, the group comes across another woman standing in the middle of the road, but this time Manuel manages to brake in time and discovers that she is Marichu's daughter. According to Graciana, her mother suffers from memory loss and sometimes forgets to take her medication. However, when asked if he had seen her, Jose says that he didn't meet her on the way and agrees to give the woman a lift home. In gratitude, Graciana invites them to dinner and introduces her daughter Eva to the guests. Upon entering the mansion, the men are startled by the state of the house, which looks as if it has been abandoned for many years. As well as being full of cobwebs, the whole place is furnished with old wooden furniture and has poor lighting, which makes it look even more frightening. When he realizes that his son has disappeared, Jose walks around the house looking for him and finds him on a tray about to be put on the fire. When she sees her mother trying to cook the young man, Graciana catches her eye and Eva asks her to forgive her for what happened, as her grandmother is not at all well in the head. After picking up his son, Jose and his friends run back to the cab and drive away. At this point, Graciana says that this boy is the chosen one and they need to do something to bring him back. Hours later, on arriving at the border, Jose realizes that the bag with all the jewels he stole has been left at the mansion, so he orders Manuel to go back and get it. When they get there, Jose and Tony break into the mansion and see Eva drinking the blood of a human heart. Frightened, the pair make their way to the kitchen, where Graciana and Marichu are handling some animals, and Jose takes advantage of the moment when the women are distracted to retrieve his bag. However, the man ends up being caught and Tony draws his gun to defend him. While being held prisoner in their own home, the old women decide to reveal their true identities and fight back. After being bitten on the arm, Tony starts shooting, but the witches climb the wall and manage to escape the shots. At that moment, Jose realizes that Manuel was right about the witches of Zugarramurdi and grabs his jewels to get out of there as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the taxi driver is in the car with Sergio and is surprised by Eva's sudden arrival. In an attempt to stop the woman from invading the vehicle, Manuel speeds up and performs various maneuvers to try and knock the witch down. However, Eva manages to hold on and the driver ends up crashing into a tree. At that moment, the young woman is thrown away and Manuel manages to gain time to escape with the boy. Halfway there, Manuel falls to the ground and Eva drags him to her house. Just as they are about to leave the mansion, Jose and Tony are attacked by the witches again, and this time they are captured. Minutes later, Sylvia, who has spent the last few hours following her husband's trail, arrives at the restaurant and is attended to by Enrique. Shortly afterwards, Marichu appears and the woman asks if a man accompanied by a boy has passed by. Immediately, the witch claims not to have seen them and Sylvia decides to go to the bathroom before leaving. However, as she crouches down, a hand comes out of the pit and stretches towards the woman without her noticing. Luckily, Enrique appears on the other side of the door and Sylvia approaches him to hear what he has to say. At that moment, the old man reveals that Sergio and his father passed by a few hours ago, but he leaves before saying where they went. Terrified, Sylvia leaves the bathroom and runs back to her car, where she finds the word Zugarramurdi written on the windshield. As soon as she starts the car, a police car comes after her. Inspector Afonso, together with his partner Jamie, suspect that Sylvia is involved in the robbery and is now on her way to the rendezvous point to flee with her ex-husband to France. Knowing that they won't be able to catch all the criminals on their own, the inspectors contact headquarters to ask for reinforcements and share their location with them. When he wakes up, Jose and his friends are tied to the chairs in the dining room and see Graciana walking on the ceiling. At this point, Manuel remembers the substance in the vials they came into contact with and comes to the conclusion that it's all just a hallucination. Luckily, Sergio manages to escape and walks alone through the forest in search of help. When he gets to the side of the road, he sees his mother's car passing by and tries to draw attention to it, but Sylvia is distracted and doesn't see the boy. Soon after, the police pass the boy, but mistake him for a forest animal and ignore him. Minutes later, Sergio sees another vehicle approaching and runs into the middle of the road to ask for help, but ends up being captured by Enrique. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Eva hears the doorbell ringing and goes to answer it, as the banquet guests are already arriving. When Marichu overtakes Sylvia's car, the woman hears her son's cries and immediately goes after him. Seeing the old woman taking the young man inside the mansion, Sylvia asks for the help of the policeman to go after him and breaks into the basement to try to reach the main hall. While dinner is not served, Eva prepares some starters and serves Mr. Badajoz's fingers on a tray. At that moment, Manuel begins to think of a strategy to escape before the worst happens and convinces Jose to try to win Eva over, as the woman is visibly interested in him. When Enrique enters the hall with his son on his lap, Jose despairs and keeps his hands tied while Marichu takes Sergio to the kitchen. Once all the guests have settled in, Graciana gets up to make a speech welcoming the witches, who gather once a year to celebrate their freedom, since a few centuries ago they were hunted. During the meeting, the witches discuss the coming of a messiah who will be sent to do justice and lead them to final victory. Every year, they perform a ritual in which 30 young people have already been sacrificed. The next one will be Sergio, and this time, Marichu is convinced that the ritual will be a success. Hearing the witches' voices, Sylvia and the policemen crawl into the main hall and hide in the ceiling while they try to think of a plan of action. Suddenly, however, the wood begins to crack and they fall onto the dining table. At that moment, the witches get scared and move away, so Jose and his friends take the opportunity to free themselves and help the policemen attack the monsters. After recovering the bag full of gold, Manuel tries to escape, but ends up being chased. Seeing his ex-wife being captured, Jose decides to leave instead of staying to help her and runs towards the exit. On the way, the trio closes the door to prevent the witches from continuing to pursue them, but the plan doesn't work as expected, as the witches manage to destroy the door. Realizing that they are about to be captured, the men decide to continue their escape, and halfway there, Jose is captured by Eva, who directs him to follow a secret passage. The witch's aim is to escape with Jose, as she fell in love with him from the moment she saw him, but the man refuses to leave his friends, and Eva revolts, as she can't accept the fact that Jose would rather leave with Tony and Manuel than with her. Furious, Eva attacks her lover and throws him far away. Meanwhile, Tony and Manuel continue to flee from the witches and manage to set one of them on fire by throwing a medal of St. Jude Thaddeus at her head. At this point, the pair find a passage that leads to a tunnel and use a lantern to light the way. After almost being eliminated by Eva, Jose also manages to find a secret passage that leads to the tunnels and ends up in the bathroom of the restaurant where Marichu works. There, he meets Luis Miguel and discovers that he is the man who watches the customers while they use the restroom. Despite living in that disgusting environment, Luis claims that his life isn't as bad as it seems. Meanwhile, Tony and Manuel manage to find their way out and celebrate when they feel the breeze against their skin. But it's not long before they realize they've celebrated too soon, as there are dozens of witches waiting for them outside. With Luis's help, Jose finds out where his son is and decides to free the man from his chains so that he can guide him there. At that moment, all the witches of Zugarramurdi are gathered inside a cave to begin the ritual being conducted by Graciana. According to Luis, during the event, Sergio will be sacrificed and the goddess will feed on him, because the witches believe that if the young man survives, it means that he is the chosen one. On the way to the cave, Jose and Luis hear some screams and free Eva, who has been chained up by her own mother after confessing that she is in love with a human. But instead of being happy to hear this, Jose says that he can't reciprocate this feeling and leaves Eva to continue his mission. While the witches celebrate, Tony and Manuel are tied to wooden stakes along with the policemen. The men are about to be eliminated in the fire and need to come up with an escape plan urgently. After undergoing the transformation process, Sylvia's soul has been corrupted and she too has become a witch. Now, the woman is taking her son to be eliminated, and while the witches are celebrating, a gigantic monster invades the cave. The creature is so heavy that its footsteps cause the ceiling to collapse and Eva ends up being buried. Seeing the creature approaching, the witches are terrified and try to flee, but some of them are trampled underfoot. After sitting down in the chair, the goddess looks at her plate and sees her next meal. Then the creature grabs the boy by the leg and puts his finger in her mouth. When he sees his son about to be devoured, Jose starts to scream, but Luis orders him to remain silent so that he doesn't become the next victim. After passing through the creature's digestive tract, Sergio manages to come out alive and Graciana announces him as the chosen one, the one who will betray his own kind and destroy humanity. Relieved to still be alive, Sergio smiles at his father, and suddenly the goddess rises to capture him. Seeing the creature heading their way, Jose and Luis try to flee and Eva tries to save her brother, but is unable to prevent him from being devoured. Furious, the young woman decides to eliminate the beast to avenge the loss of Luis, then uses Jose as a distraction to buy time. While the man struggles not to be devoured, Eva jumps on the creature's head and removes the ropes that are being used to cover its eyes. At that moment, the goddess is completely unprotected and falls into the fire, spitting Luis out. When it gets up, the creature walks completely out of control and runs over everything and everyone in its path. As she approaches to try to calm the goddess, Marichu ends up being crushed and Jose runs to Eva's aid. Just then, Tony and the others manage to free themselves and strike the witches to keep them at bay. As soon as Eva regains consciousness, Jose tries to get his son back, but discovers that he is no longer the same. When asked who he wants to stay with, Sergio chooses to remain with the witches and Eva strikes her own mother to stop her hurting Jose. As mother and daughter start to fight, Sylvia approaches and Jose realizes that she's gloomier than ever. At this point, he tries to come to an agreement with his ex-wife, but ends up being attacked by her. Seeing his friend about to be eliminated, Luis strikes Sylvia and manages to save him. During the battle, Eva knocks her mother to the ground and Graciana is eliminated by hitting her head on a rock. Seeing their leader lose her life, the witches panic and Eva kisses her beloved goodbye. When she realizes that Jose is in trouble, the young woman decides to help him take his son to safety and the group runs through the forest while being chased by the witches. A month later, the couple are living in France together with Tony, Manuel and the policeman. One day, during a performance of a play at school, Sergio breaks his stage assistant's body in half and uses his new powers to put all the pieces back together. While everyone in the audience is amazed by this trick, Sylvia, Marichu and Graciana are sitting in the back row waiting for the moment when Sergio will fulfill his destiny. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.